All right, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Chelsea Marburger. I'm the executive director of the Propylaeum Historic Foundation. We are the kind of producing entity for this historic preservation series. Thank you, everyone, for being here with us tonight to learn about the past and present architecture of Butler University. If you have not been to the Indianapolis Propylaeum, we welcome you to join us as a tour for a tour with Indiana landmarks for membership. So you can join us anytime in the Indianapolis Propylaeum. We're located at 14th and Delaware and are a nationally registered historic landmark. So I would love to tell you more and more about the Propylaeum. However, that's not what we're here for tonight. I'm going to hand it over to longtime member and supporter Lorraine to tell us more about the historic preservation series, who will then hand it off to another longtime member, Marjorie Kinley, to talk more about tonight's presentation. So take it away, ladies.
We are going to do that exactly in reverse. Marjorie's going to go next and talk about the
Okay.
series and what's coming up next, and I get the honor of the introduction. Oh, Marjorie, you're on mute.
Go. You had muted me when I was yelling at my dog, but so everybody put June 17th on your calendar at 7 p.m. for the next historic preservation presentation, and it's going to be Jordan Ryan, and she's going to share with us information about the city county archives. And the city county archives, when Jordan first went there, was a bunch of dusty boxes and a small office. And today, and some of the other people on this call, Dr. Glass and I, and Dee Dee, who works there now, we went through the archives, and it's now the whole fifth floor of the just what had been all the courtrooms. So those great big courtrooms are now part of the archives. And Jordan and Dee Dee are doing a humongous job of sorting through information that needs to be preserved and will be a very interesting presentation. So do put that on your calendar, June 17th, 7 p.m.
Okay, and now I have the privilege to say, back by popular demand, to present tonight's Historic Preservation Series program is architectural preservationist James Degrazia. James will speak on the past and present architecture of Butler University. This covers over 170 years of Butler architectural history, exploring the buildings and spaces that have shaped the university across its three campus locations, first in downtown Indianapolis on the Old Northside, then in Irvington, and finally where it is today in Butler-Tarkington. James's last Propylaeum talk covered the lost, graceful, and magnificent mansions and buildings along Meridian Street from Monument Circle to Tinker Street, which is 16th Street, and can be found on the Propylaeum's YouTube page. So just want to give a shout out to that. That was another amazing presentation. Indianapolis is fortunate to have a small cadre of historic preservationists sleuthing out magical pictures and recordings of iconic buildings, and I guess records of iconic buildings. Among these elite sleuths, Dr. James Glass, Dee Dee Davis, Joan Hostetler, Sharon Bush Freeland, Jordan Ryan, but James Degrazia stands out as one of the best for his research abilities to find hidden gems. And that is a quote from one of the other illustrious elite sleuths. So I will let you guess on who said that, James. James appreciates quality architecture and design from all eras and is especially passionate about historical architecture. He is a native of Valparaiso and earned his master's degree in architecture from the University of Illinois, Chicago. James has devoted years to researching 19th century architecture throughout Indiana. James and his wife, Rebecca, are currently restoring a home in Madison, Indiana, built in 1846, as well as a home in Attica, Indiana, built in 1876. In their downtime, James and Rebecca enjoy taking day trips and learning about the histories of towns and cities throughout the Midwest. Without further ado, please help me welcome James Degrazia. James.
Ah, well, thank you for all those kind words. My gosh. But while we're going to try to get this thing going, so can everybody see that right now? It sounds like everybody can. Well, I definitely want to thank the Propylaeum and obviously Lorraine and Marjorie and Chelsea for allowing me to do this. It's an honor, and it's a lot of fun doing these things. It does make me a bit nervous sometimes. What we're going to take a look at, what you see here, are the main buildings from each of the campuses as they go in line there. We're going to talk about some of the architects and the work they did before discussing the buildings that they put on Butler's campuses. There's a few buildings I didn't talk about. I'm not really talking about temporary buildings and some smaller ones, but we'll get on it right now. The first architect we're going to look at is William Tinsley, and here's a few of the works that he did throughout the country, really. I was going to press this timer so I can keep things going. There it goes. So what we have here is Kenyon College, Indiana University, a high school in Columbus, and Bascom Hall up there in Wisconsin. All these were done after the Northwestern Christian University hired him to do the work at their site. The two buildings that still stand are Gambier and Wisconsin. Wisconsin does not look very much like it does in this picture anymore. I just jumped way ahead. This is what Tinsley did for Northwestern Christian University. This is an etching of his design. He came from Ireland and had quite a nice career out there in Ireland. But with the economy going what it was in the late 1840s and early 1850s, he decided to move his family to the United States, and in 1851 arrived and ended up in Cincinnati and started trying to get work there. His design aesthetics were a lot different from what was known in the area, and he didn't get much work. But a year later, after a lot of hardships, he saw in the paper a RFP, request for proposal, for a building for Northwestern Christian University. That was in September of 1852. And one of the things he did notice was in that there was a $100 premium for the winning design, which he really wanted. And also the deadline for the submissions was on November 23rd, 1852. The building could cost no more than $75,000 and was to be able to be built in sections to allow the school to grow as needed. And he was very excited with this, so he submitted two designs. This is the one that won. He found out he won early in 1853 and was asked to come up to Indianapolis on January 22nd to meet with the proprietors of the school and hash out the details. A note that this etching here you see was actually done in 1857 of the original design, and it was actually created to sell to raise money for books and things for the school. Something I want to point out is this stair right here. We'll see what's going on with that in a little bit. And by the way, the only portion that was built was from here over on the left side of it. Here's what was built, an early view of the building. And as you can see, there is no stair in that section right here. There looks like there was maybe one. A lot of times these buildings, the first floor was actually up higher, and the windows you see on the lower floor was actually the basement. And then under that would be a cellar. In May of 1853, they advertised for construction bids, and foundation work began in the summer of 1853. This building was dedicated on November 1st, 1855. And this section cost $27,000. That number seems to pop up, you'll see as we go along. This was considered at the time collegiate Gothic, but later it was called modified Tudor. But what you see here is a design that is well ahead of its time for the area, and was definitely an impetus for buildings as time went on. But notice some of the Orioles here and here. That's a new feature for the area. Also, the dormers that line the top towers and the cupolas, the stone trim around the windows, and the coining up and down the corners. This was quite a building at the time. Now, as we jump forward, by August of 1872, the school was actually asking for bids to complete the building. They were going to expand. And remember that date, August of 1872. As we come up here, this is an interior view of Ascension Hall at Kenyon College. I was unable to find any photographs of the interior of the Butler building, but this gives you an idea of what it may have looked like. Very detailed woodwork, very beautiful. A few years later, a number of years later, when Butler left, an orphan asylum took over the building and installed a timber porch, which you see on the side there, as the building is being dismantled. But you can see where that porch was. A few years after that, after the orphan asylum left, the Physio Medical College took it over and used this building until 1909, at which time they left to a new facility, and this building was taken down, unfortunately, the next year. The next architect we'll talk about is Edwin May. His most noted building is obviously the state capitol of Indiana, which you see in the top corner. The drawing next to it is of the state capitol, and I believe this is an earlier version, his non-winning version of the first round of competition that was made on for the capitol. Everything was scrapped on that, and a year or so later they redid the competition, and he won that. The two buildings on the far right side are schools, which no longer exist. Both were built. The drawing below was here, close where I am in Covington, Indiana, and obviously Logansport. And then a couple of buildings from downtown Indianapolis, business buildings. He designed many courthouses, churches, and also jails and things like that. Very prolific designer. But notice the detail of all these. They're quite eye candy, as Rebecca would say. Quite a bit going on with that. Well, here's what he did for Butler. This is a drawing that I was able to find over at the Irvington Historical Society, along with a photograph, the only photograph I've seen of the building before the roof was changed up. In July of 24th, 1873, Irvington decided to move to Irvington. They had a little competition with another site, but this is just less than a year from earlier when I was saying that they were getting bids for finishing the original building. They scrapped that. Now, on that original site, it was 25 acres, from what I understand. The new site they got in Irvington was 30 acres, and they also got $150,000 to locate there, donated by people from Irvington. The move has been described as financial or space, like they didn't have enough room, or I've also seen the negative influence of being so close to the Sin City of Indianapolis, students being distracted. I believe that the real reason, as is my speculation, was that it was a financial reason, but to add on to the original building cost some money. The building was on a site that was ready for major development in Indianapolis. They decided to sell it, make money on that, and give a competition in which they got 30 acres and $150,000. That's a good deal. The original intent was to have 5 elegant buildings built on this site, costing about $200,000. This was the only one that was actually built at that time. The contracts were let for the foundation in April of 1874, and the building superstructure above the foundation was awarded to John Buchanan for, again, $27,000 in July of 1874. The building was dedicated in 1875, September 15th. This is what people usually think of the building. This was after the roof was completely redone. Actually, I want to go back to the other one. I just want to point out some of the interesting things that Edwin May did with the cupolas and the tower that's shifted at an angle. And you got parapet walls, which I'm sure caused a lot of pain with the keeping water out of the building. So they did change that roof to what you see here. New tower, took some of the gables off, the dormers, and some of those cupolas. This building had 24 recitation rooms, library, and again, like I said, the roof was changed in about 1892. This is a much simpler looking structure than what we saw of his other work. And here we see some interior photographs of the building. Note the coffered ceiling, the simple coffered ceiling in the chapel room, and in the library, the barricade to keep people out of the real books. But you can see some of the detail of the building. And here we see the building being demolished. You can see the original framing of the original roof still sticking up. Sadly, basically all the original buildings on this campus were taken down about 1939. The next architect we're talking about here is John Stem. And what you see there is a college building he designed for Vincennes. And I just had to put these other houses on there. Vincennes, what you see down there, that house in Vincennes, is definitely designed by John Stem. And the other two buildings are so similar that they have to be also. I'm sure the one in Indianapolis people have seen up there on Delaware Street quite often. And here's what he designed for the Irvington campus. It was a dormitory. It was co-ed, which is very early on for that kind of thing. But there were a bit of shenanigans going on. Apparently, either the women or the men were drilling holes to peek around. I'm not sure which one that would be, but I think everybody knows. But so that didn't go very well, and they just turned it into a men's dorm. Later on, years later, it was just a women's dorm. It kind of flip-flopped around. But notice some of the details on this very simple structure is the brickwork above the windows, the tying in of the windows at the head and at the base, and that interesting parapet holding up or bracing up that chimney, which mimics the windows in the gable right there. And the next architects we're talking about is John Thurtle with Mr. Fleming. The big building you see, the bit large photograph, was the Sentinel building on South Illinois Street, downtown Indianapolis. I just think that one's fascinating. It's very disjointed, kind of awkward, but fascinating. It looks like a lot of fun. One thing I want to point out on that is that eagle, or whatever that bird situation is, on the corner there, holding up that light right there. And I'm sure most people have seen the Blashern. And over in Crawfordsville, Lew Wallace Study, which is open to the public. I think I would recommend anybody to go there and check that out. It's a fantastic building. Well, here's what they did for Butler, one of the pieces they did for Butler. This is, you notice the Romanesque details on this, and this building is really symmetrical. It's got a hip roof in the center, two gables on each end. The only difference between the building's sides is the lack of a tower on the other side. Otherwise, this facade would be very symmetrical. Notice the gable ends and the parapet walls and the Palladian windows and all that. So it's a nice little design. Here's some interior shots of the laboratories, just to show you what kind of details went on in there. Notice on the right picture, on the ceiling, you can see the gas lighting in there and the knob and tube connected to the ceiling. They were bringing that up to date. Another building that the same firm did was the gymnasium and the engine house. The photograph on the left is the engine house, which resembles the building we just looked at. And of course, the larger looking side of it is the gymnasium, done in the Romanesque style. And I do believe that the original building, the re-roofing of that was probably done by this firm also. Here's an interior of the gymnasium. This is said to be the inside of the first building we looked at, designed by this company, but I believe it is actually in the building connected with the engine house, due to the ceiling, what you see there. It's a gable end, not a hip roof. But notice some of the gymnasium things that you would see at that time: rings and a vaulting horse and these pins in the back and a rowing machine. These kinds of things are just look like a lot of fun and build up a bit of sweat. The architects firm of DuPont and Johnson, they only were together for a very short time. Each of these two architects on their own had very long-lasting careers, but these are the only two buildings I could find that were designed by both of them, and neither of them exist anymore, but it gives you an idea of what they worked on. And here's what they did for the Irvington campus. This is the Bona Thompson Center, and just notice its classical monumentality, and some of the details with the ionic columns in the center, the cartouche up in the center of the pediment, the arch windows. It's a fantastic, very solid looking building. This building was not only designed for Butler, but it was also intended to be designed or to be used by the town of Irvington. And here we see a rare interior shot. If you see my cursor, if you were standing right here in the corner of that floor plan, you'd be looking this way, and that's what you'd be seeing right there. That locates that drawing or that photograph. Right in here, if you've been in this building, that's where the stairs are now. They inserted stairs after this was no longer used as a library, from what I understand. And here's another image of the interior looking straight from the entry door. And that photograph, that picture in the background of that arch is where the stairs are now. And the drawing that you see is before the building was built. That's their winning design. As you can see, the building was built pretty well to match that design. And here we see some of the fantastic tile work on the floor of the entry of that building. I just want to point out that the photograph on the right was taken by Dee Dee Davis. She leaned over the rail and risked her life to get that photograph, but it's actually a very beautiful photograph right there. So now we come up to the Fairview campus, or the Butler-Tarkington campus, and let's go through a few of these aerial views just to point out how this moved along. This was the first building built, and you can see that it is under construction or very nearly finished. The site was an amusement park, which vacated this, and Butler occupied it, and got rights of it and occupied that. And pretty much everything you see there is part of Butler. Here's another view looking at Jordan Hall there, and you can see the field house in the back and the football pit. I'm not sure what that's called back there, back here. And here's another view looking towards the south. The small house you see in the foreground was just a building that was existing before they got the site. But in the background, I want to point out this fraternity was designed and built about the same time Jordan Hall was. And something else, if anybody knows, there's a little railroad over here. I don't know if that was actually part of the amusement park or what's going on there. If anybody knows at the end, let me know. It's a curious little detail. And you can see in this image, Clarendon has been extended through. The last image there, I guess the first image it wasn't in. And here we see looking to the north about the same area, and you can see a little bit more detail work on the landscaping of the still the two original buildings. And as time moves on, you can see we've got this new building, of course, the pharmacy building's under construction, and Atherton is is about finished. You see all the moved dirt around that. And you can see also that there's 2 lanes on both of these roads that intersect in this campus. And move on a little bit further, you can see the 2 dorms, one here and the other one here, and Holcomb Observatory has been added. And 1962, they seem to break away from the general look of Butler with the 3 new buildings that you see here, as well as the Carillon in the back. And also notice that the addition to this dorm is here, and the additions to the women's dorm is under construction in that photograph. And here, this photograph, which really looks like a model, shows the campus a little bit lighter. You see the new building out here for the science complex. And another view of about the same, a few years later, not much changed, except color is added to the photograph. And later in the early 90s, you can see that Clarendon has now been, cars no longer can go on it in that section of it. And the new big dormitory here, Resco's, under construction. And they're closing off that portion of that road on 46th Street. So let's get back to the architecture. This is Robert Frost Daggett with Thomas Hibben. I think Thomas Hibben was a little bit more involved with the massing of these buildings. They're very exceptional design. I think the Chamber of Commerce is one of the best high-rise, it's not that high, but high-rise buildings in the city, as well as I like that church you see there, which is up on, I think, 34th in Pennsylvania. It's a beautiful building. And you notice the massing of these. And of course, down at the bottom, the Lincoln Memorial proposal was never built like that, but you can see the massing, which resembles this building, which is Jordan Hall. A lot of the ins and outs and towers and interesting features of it. This building opened on September 17th, 1928. Arthur Jordan had donated $1 million to Butler, and some of that money went into building this. This building was designed in 3 dimensions, kind of like now with a current way of designing with modeling. You can get the floor plan and the elevations all at once. Back then, a lot of architects would figure out the floor plan to fit on the site and then work the elevations out later with whatever style they felt appropriate. This was done all in one shot. And again, the 3 major units of it, 1 unit here, 1 here, and 1 back there, divided by these stair towers. Here's a couple of details of Jordan. Notice the interesting massing. It's built out of rough, variegated pink granite, where you see the very rough, bumpy look to it. And then the Indiana limestone is where the smooth details were required. Anything that was carved is limestone in there, and the 2 materials definitely work well with each other. The superstructure of this building was, or is designed, built of reinforced concrete. And here's out of the American Architect of January 5th of 1928, some of the ideas of Mr. Hibben's ideas of the progressive development of the massing of the building. As we talked about earlier, you can see the progression there. And on the other sheet is some of the examples of the carved pieces of stone that were throughout the building. And these were all made by a pneumatic chisel. And then I just said that was January 5th, 1928. Well, 1 year later, the same periodical came out with a very large spread on Jordan Hall. In fact, Jordan Hall was the front cover of that issue. And I just wanted to show a few different floor plans. I apologize with the blurriness. I couldn't find a better image of that, but it shows the original floor plans of the various floors there. The next architect we're going to talk about is Femer S. Cannon. And these are a couple of designs that he did in Indianapolis, which were very, solid pieces of work. The J.F. Wild Bank Building, both these are still standing in Indianapolis, but the bank building was just recently converted to residential use. And here's what he did for design for Butler. And I say Butler, but it's not quite Butler. This In April of 1927, the board of directors formed a new corporation, which was created by, which was with 41 businessmen, and that was called the Butler University School of Physical Education and Athletics. And they issued 11,250 shares at $100 each, preferred and common stock, and to create this building. Butler donated 40 acres to the corporation, and with a lot of uh, what is the term for that? Financial finagling, which was supposed to be going on throughout the years, it would then come back to Butler after the corporation was paid out. That didn't happen because of the Depression, and Butler got it back anyway. This is a fantastic piece of engineering work, more so than architectural work. And I believe it was the largest facility of this type in the nation and may still be for a college use. And I think most people know the interior was featured in the movie Hoosiers. And here's an image of the interior of that building. You can see the structural work above, but notice that the windows are in the back, straight ahead, and the court faces it. There was issue with that is west we're looking at, or maybe east. I'm not sure which direction we're seeing in that. But the sun rises and sets in the east and west, and during games the sun would shine in and be in the eyes of one of the teams, and there was a lot of uproar on that. So many years ago they switched this basketball court where it runs north and south. It turned at 90 degrees. And then that brings us to the original design for the College of Religion. This was done by Robert Frost Daggett and was to be located on the site where the pharmacy building, the original pharmacy building, stands right now. And it would have been a nice feature to contrast Jordan Hall across the way. Obviously, this was not built, but what they did build was this building. This building originally housed the Butler University College of Religion, which was brought into Butler in the 1930s, I believe. And this is a way different design style. This is a Georgian style. Does not really match the buildings that we've been looking at on the campus. In 1958, the College of Religion incorporated as the Christian Theological Seminary, or CTS. And a number of years later, in 1966, they moved to their own facility, which is just south of Butler right now. Butler purchased the building, this building you're seeing here at that time, and renamed it Robertson Hall at that time to honor the Robertson family, who donated money in order to have a chapel built on the campus. There wasn't enough money for that, so they instead bought this and named it in honor of them. A recent addition in the back of this building, which you can't see, likely designed by Browning, Day Mullins, and Derdorf, was added to the rear of the building sometime in the early 2000s. That brings us to Atherton Center. This is the original Atherton Center as it was finished. It was about $1.25 million to build this, and it contained cafeterias, club rooms, a bookstore, as well as game rooms for the enjoyment of all on the campus. This definitely carried on the design features of Jordan Hall, and is quite a nice little building. Here's an interior view of it. This stair still exists. It's a little bit needs a little bit of touching up, but it still exists in there, leading to the current bookstore from inside the building. The bookstore would be behind you or right on the floor where the photograph is taken. But note the wood paneling in the modern style. The pharmacy building, again designed in the same realm of what Jordan was, the stone and the heavy carvings and all of that was done here. And this is a pleasantly symmetrical building, but all in all, this is a standard scholastic laboratory building, clothed in a nice outside of it, and fits in well, like I said, with Jordan Hall. This building also, same way. This was the first residence hall built on campus. It was called Men's Hall. And it was about $1 million for that. And it housed about 280 students. In 1962-63, an addition was made in the back, the backside, which you can't see here. which housed another 250 students. At that time, the addition was put on. This building's name was changed to Ross Hall. And again, like I said, the building's exterior complements the standard design ideas of Butler. Here's an interior shot of that. It's black and white, but from what I understand, the furniture and the carpet was really colorful and a lot of fun. That's something I want to point out is right here and over here, these cigarette ashtrays, 1965, smoke up. At the same time, this was going on. In fact, Holcomb Observatory was built on fill that was brought in from the building we were just looking at, from the foundation. A man named Arthur Lindsberg, who was the superintendent of buildings and grounds for Butler, is the one who came up with the concept of this. They had Robert Frostagate draw up the designs according to Arthur's specifications. On the west side, or the left side, is the planetarium, and on the opposite side is a nice lecture hall. In the center is a nice tower, open to the clear up to the top, nearly the top, with a fantastic light, and of course, the observatory is on the top there. And here is the observatory, early shot of it. It's hopefully I say the name right. It's 38-inch Cassini-Granian reflector telescope made by the J.W. Flecker Incorporated. It was actually craned right through that opening you see right there and put together in place. In fact, you can see the crane outside right now. The next building is the women's dorm, which was built just after the men's dorm was completed, and in the same style by the same architects. And the two additions were in the back. Of course, this photograph is before the additions, but this building has the major distinction of being the only building on this campus that has been demolished. It was demolished just a few years ago, but gratefully, a lot of the stones that made up this building were used throughout the campus for various other structures and walls and such. This brings us to Lilly Hall, and I'm sure everybody's noticed the very drastic difference between the look of this building and what we've been seeing all up to this point. There's a nice drastic change here. Here we see, this building became possible by a $1 million gift from the Lilly Endowment, and is a modern limestone construction. In a roundabout way, it does kind of hark back to Jordan and some of the buildings that they had. You see these vertical piers, and above the windows, it's recessed. It gives it a nice vertical, almost slight tower look, like what you see on Jordan Hall. In the rear of this, there was a large courtyard where musical events could be performed and all that. We'll see on the next image, which is right here. This is a study between the two buildings going up about the same time. You see the courtyard on the Lilly Hall, which is obviously this. Clues Hall is in the background. I have to say personally, I'm not sure that these two buildings really relate too well to each other, at least stylistically, but there you have it there. And let's move to the next architect, which was Yamasaki. His firm was out of Detroit, and so, as you might expect, some of these buildings were in Detroit. What you see here is the One Woodward Avenue Towers. Is a wonderful building in Detroit, and it's a precursor to his more well-known World Trade Centers, which we lost a few years ago. This is a much more reserved and elegant design than the massive Twin Towers. What you see over there in the Science Pavilion, you can hardly tell the scale of that until you notice there are people standing here. And you can see back there, that's more of his design work. And down at the bottom, you got the College of Education at Wayne State University, where he designed many buildings on that campus. And you can see the relationship of that building with what was done on Butler. This building is, and to me, has a nice human scale to the pieces of it. It actually looks assembled. And I always appreciate that kind of thing. It was made from precast concrete panels. There's one right there, and you can just see them all the way through. That's what makes up the floor and the ceilings of the building, of each floor. And then there's windows in between the concrete columns. Very simple design, but very elegant, very delicate design, very typical of Yamasaki's work. This building was sited in the middle of the block, but originally on some plans I saw, it was actually to be on the corner of 46 and Clarendon, where current Dugan Hall stands. Why they put it in the middle at that time, all by itself, they must have had plans for the future. Here's some interior views of that, very, very elegant and simple. Notice the custom beams at the top, which make up the ceiling, and discreetly hold the lights right in through here. All that, all nicely wrapped in one design. And on the other image, you see the large central atrium with reflecting pool and the skylight. Very, very inviting, very light. Now, on the left-hand picture, which is on either side of the atrium you see there, on all three floors, was basically that open concept with some bathrooms in the middle, but it could be divided into stacks or offices or a study area like that. Very versatile spaces. That brings us to the next designer that worked at Butler, which is Evans Wolin. These are a few buildings that are, three of these are very, very close to Butler University. The library at Marion University, which I think is a beautiful bit of massing, is what you see, the model of it on the top there. And then just down the street from Butler on 46th Street, 46, right, is the St. Thomas Aquinas Church, which is a wonderful building. And the Baron Mallory residence, which is just a stone's throw from the baseball fields of Butler, is my favorite building that he designed and one of my favorite modernist buildings in the state. The massing of that, I think, is beautiful, and the floor plan is outstanding. And then, of course, after what he did for Butler, he won the commission for a music and arts center up there in Indiana University. This is what was designed for Butler. He actually, since he hadn't had many large bits of work done, he pulled in one of his mentors, John Johansson, to help give credence to him to be able to do this large project. The massing of this building very successfully harkens back to Jordan Hall in a more modern way with the towers and the recesses. It's very wonderfully done. Notice the tapering concrete columns on the corners, and they hold in the limestone panels. It's not concrete between those. Financing for this was made possible by Edith Clues to honor her husband, George. But like Tinsley, early on, the architect we looked at, Wolin and Tinsley both, after getting these commissions for Butler or Butler's predecessor, their careers blew up. I mean, they just went outstanding. Here's another view of the building in the front. Notice the curved cantilever canopy, that is similar to what has been done at IU. If you see my cursor, this canopy actually had a balcony. This was a balcony here. Well, it wasn't used much. So just a few years ago, they took out a few of these panels right there and encased this in glass to get more use out of it. And it's called the marquee room. I will not express whether I like that or not. And here's a couple of interior shots of the building as it was just opened. You can see the people on the balconies over there all have hard hats and touring the building as it's nearly completed, and a nice view of the auditorium. Very well done, a big hit in architectural circles at the time this building was built. And I also want to point out the cloud acoustical panels on the top. It's a very elegant way of helping the sound and breaking the vastness of the ceiling. And here's a nice color shot of the building lobby area, showing some of the color schemes on it. Unpainted concrete and just white where the plaster is, and that wonderful yellow carpet. And it's just a great image. The next firm we're going to talk about quickly is HOK, which is Helmuth Obata Kasbon. In fact, this company is out of St. Louis and is a very huge architectural design firm. They've designed things all over the world, very major projects. And in fact, Yamasaki actually worked for this firm before he started his own company in Detroit. This is what HOK designed for Butler University. There was a capital funds campaign that was for nearly $2 million begun in 1968. And part of the money that was raised for that was used to create these buildings. Gallahue is on the left with the towers, and Holcomb Research Institute, or HRI, is on the right, a very much more simple looking structure. HRI closed in the 1990s, and the building is now, that portion of the building is now known as the Holcomb Building. These were built at the same time and definitely had the different massing on to differentiate the two of them. On the Gallahue side, that's this one. Again, I'm going to point out again, they're definitely playing back to the Jordan Hall with the ins and outs and the towers and things like that, which is definitely wonderful. And I'm going to point out this junction between the buildings right here. We're going to see that later on in here, but remember what this looks like. And here's the architect's drawing, or early architect's drawing of that. Notice that the Holcomb building here actually matches the design of the Gallahue on this early design. And you can see Jordan Hall and how it relates. And definitely, if anyone gets a chance to go in that building, that light well in there, where the stairs and that lobby is a very wonderful spot. One of the, in my opinion, not so successful designs is the Resco. I'm sure it works really well for what it's built for, but in looks, it's just a little bit less. But it's a massive figure-8 dormitory building. And it's a modern version of the massing and details of Jordan Hall, as you can see. It originally had blue window frames, which I thought stood out and did not really react well with the stone or concrete walls. They've been changed out and they're black now. I think that change actually happened just a couple of years ago. And something else I want to point out is it looks like they used silicone sealant in between the panels of the stone or concrete, which leached into the stone and caused dust to stick to it, which accentuated the joints. They have since cleaned that, which now they look really white, where the rest of the weathered stone is darker. So they're trying to catch up on that. This is the Atherton Union addition. I took this one out on its own instead of just an addition to Atherton earlier. What you're seeing here with the windows is the Riley Room, one of the largest assembly rooms on the campus. This is the South End addition, and it does include that little clock tower and the entryway there. There was a Northside addition that was completed just a few years later. I do not have a photograph of that, but both of these designs are very sensitive and fit in very well. In fact, I wouldn't doubt if a lot of people that are in there wouldn't even realize they're additions. Fairbanks Hall was built behind Jordan. It's hard to see this building. It doesn't stand out very in the traffic very well. It has this wonderful rear portion of the building, which sports glass walls overlooking this nice lawn. But the front of the building, which you see on the other photograph, is means much more business. And here we got the addition to Lilly Hall of Music. You can see the original portion of the Lilly Hall here, and they put this new entrance, and they filled in the courtyard with the new addition. This entrance protrudes out towards the street just a bit more, and to the right of this picture is where Clues is currently standing. I'm figuring this was to frame Clues, but it makes it feel much more recessed than it used to. And then we jump across the campus to see the apartment village. And this comprises of 8 buildings sited in an apparent random way. the Hilton Youth Theater was demolished to make way for this in 2005. I'm not going to be talking about that theater. It's more of landscape architecture, in my opinion, than otherwise. Some interesting features on this building are these pseudo parapet walls made out of this lead covered material, which then trends down the side of the building, and some of the punch out windows and the classic red brick use. This is a classic building type brought into the modern times. I think it's a kind of quite a nice design. The HRC, or the Health and Recreational Center, was built just a number of years ago to feed the needs of people that want to work out. There's gymnasiums in there, running track, pools, and all that kind of thing. And this was designed by Moody Nolan with the help of Ratio here in Indianapolis. But Moody Nolan is very well known for recreational facilities all over the country, and it's not surprising that they were hired to do this. One of their standard features of design work is that curve that you see on the building. It does kind of represent the curvature of the road, which you don't see here, but it's a very wonderful building. I've been in that, and it's great. The next building here is the pharmacy building. I wouldn't call it an addition, but it is connected to the original pharmacy building, which you see in the background of this photograph by a walkway. Connects each floor. And this is a standard kind of structure built at this time to create an answer to the need of more office space for professors and things like that. And they did clothe it in a nice complementary stone and all of that. But notice that entryway that you see there really does have the same kind of feel a few slides ago as what was seen on the addition to Lilly Hall of Music, which is right here. That's the addition to the Lilly Hall of Music right there. But we're going to talk about the Schrott Center right here. This is as far as I know, the only tilt-up construction with prefabricated panels on the campus, unless you want to say that some of the pieces for the library were prefabricated, which they were. This is a different way. This building frames up the other side of Clues. You can see, like I pointed out, the entry to Lilly Hall and this building, which definitely frames Clues. Of course, you can't see Clues, so I don't know how successful that was. The interior of the Schrott Center is fantastic. It's a very warm, inviting space, and it's a little bit quite a bit smaller than Clues. So smaller performances could be played here, practices and things like that. Very nice interior. And the parking complex that was just put up a few years ago, it seemed like that was just going to be a big eyesore put in there, but they actually did a good job of creating a nice facade on the front of the building with the gables and the brickwork and what looks like an entrance, which mimics some of the entrances of the original buildings in the center, and also giving space for restaurants and things like that, commercial space. The next buildings that were built were a couple of very large dormitories. This one is Fairview House, designed by Solomon Caldwell and Benz out of Chicago, which I'm guessing now they're called SCB. And it's very typical of the kind of student housing that is popping up all over the country and campuses all over. So it matches very well with this. I'm just going to point out a couple of things. The stone here and the randomness here, and then the material here, it just doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't blend in well. The same firm designed this building. This is what was built on the site of the women's dormitory that was demolished, and it matches pretty well with the dormitory we just looked at. Dugan Hall here is an interesting building. It is definitely a LEED Gold certified building, which means that it's energy efficient and built with materials that are good for the environment and obtained in ways that are good for the environment. One thing I want to point out about this building is it has the towers just like Jordan, playing back to Jordan. But on this, the towers are glass, and the rest of the building is not, giving it a much different feel and a nice play on Jordan Hall. And here's the interior space of the atrium. It's a very dynamic and large, wonderful space. Note the materials used on it. It's very open, but you can see where the stairs are. You can feel where you're going to be going in this large space here. And by the way, they did connect this building to the library. I think that connection is behind this photograph. Actually, I think it's right through here. And I pointed out that corner of the Gallahue and the Holcomb building. That's what was put in between it now. If you remember all the concrete that was there before, this is the new version, or what was just finished just a couple of years ago. And there's the interior of that. This nice open space. By the way, this is Levinson Family Hall. Most of it is behind there, the construction of an empty space that was behind these two buildings. This wonderful atrium here, you can see Blue enjoying himself while looking at the camera, having pictures taken. We talked about the Christian Theological Society, or CTS, that was part of Butler. Then they went on their own, and then they got this campus south of Butler. Butler now has brought that back into their own. And so I'm going to bring that up. This was built in 1965-66 and additions in 1986. This is what's called South Campus of Butler now. And this is just a spectacular piece of architecture designed by Edward Larrabee Barnes, and should be seen by anybody that can go there. Now, I don't know how it's going to look, but over on this side, they're about ready to construct a new parking garage. I don't know how it's going to impact the view of this building, but we will see. And the last building we're going to talk about is part of CTS also. Across the street there are these really wonderful residential units that were used for the seminary and is now part of Butler. They're spread out on a lot of land, so I'm sure, I hope they don't get demolished, but the value of the land may cause that to happen. Well, that's what I have for this showing. I do want to thank a few of these people, definitely Dee Dee Davis and William, Marjorie and Lorraine, definitely. Thank you very much for having me on this. And of course, Ben and Joan and Dr. Glass are always extremely helpful with their knowledge. And Kyle Stearns, the archivist, he's doing a great job over there. And then my wife, Rebecca, for her unending patience and support in helping me make this look as well as it does, or at least hopefully well as it does. Thank you very much. I'll send it back to you guys.
Thanks so much, James. If you're okay with it, we can. Okay, there we go. Being able to see on video certainly helps. If anyone has any questions, you're welcome to kind of raise your hand and I can help you unmute. And we've got Marjorie, I've got your hand there. You can also feel comfortable dropping questions in the chat if that's more comfortable for you, and we can read them for you.
Do you know why they changed from Irvington to Butler-Tarkington? Was it just that there was more land, or?
I think that actually is it. I think actually the site down there in Irvington was getting a bit cramped.
And I noticed that the destruction of the buildings demolished were primarily 1939, which was beginning of World War II. Did that have any effect, or they just needed the land in Irvington?
I think so. I'm not sure how this went. Dee Dee, if she can chime in here in a bit, she may know more about that. But it was abandoned for 10 years at least, and they couldn't find any other uses for it. There was some schools that wanted to take over it, but it didn't happen. I think they just finally decided to take them down. Which I think if they lasted a bit, a number of years longer, they probably would have gotten used pretty nicely.
James, we do have a question in the chat from our member Cindy Keller, who herself lives in a very cool historic home. Do you know the approximate address of the Northwestern Christian on College Avenue?
That was, I don't know the address, but I know where it is. If you go up College Avenue and you're going under the north split and all of that, if you know where that's at, it's actually under the north split. The north portion of the north split on the east side of the road is where it was.
That would be at about 11th. Does that sound right,
At
Lorraine?
12, maybe a little bit more, maybe like 14th, 13th.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
If it
Yeah,
was
there's
under the
no
north
nothing
split,
left
that
there.
would have been 12th.
There is a historical marker.
Yeah, actually, there is a historical marker right in that area.
We
Do
might
you,
have to do a walk and learn of all the historical markers of the Old North Side.
yeah, there's quite a few of them up there.
Lorraine, you're on mute if you're talking to us. There we go.
And the the Butler house, Ovid Butler, his house was right at 13th between Central and oh my gosh, Park. And it's standing today. It did not get demolished.
Yeah, that's definitely still there. That was built just a few years, 1851, about 1850, 51, I think, if I'm right about that. It's been a long time since I've been looking into that. Actually, I think it's a little earlier. Is there any other questions?
We have a comment from Sarah. Just wanted to let you know that her mom had a cousin who used to reminisce about actually attending Butler in Irvington, and she thanks you for your review.
Oh, really? It was talked about going there, huh?
Hmm.
James, I really appreciate the context that you gave each architect so we could see some of their other work before we saw the actual Butler building. That was fascinating to me. Thank you.
I'm glad that worked out well. I wondered whether I should do that or not.
Oh, absolutely. It's aged so well. I know I went to Butler a very long time ago, and we have our wonderful intern as a Butler student right now. And whenever I've been on campus, it's so interesting how well everything has aged. You know exactly what the buildings are, and the architecture inside has aged so well over the years at Butler's campus.
And what I was reading in that article in the periodical about Jordan Hall, it was to last forever. The materials and were supposed to be able to resist the weathering very well, but actually, if you go in there, there's a lot of issues of water infiltration and spalling stone and things like that, which is disappointing to see. But I'm glad they're working on it, keeping it up to date.
I hope I look that good at 100.
I have no doubt, Marjorie. Jim, it looks like you've unmuted. Do you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to compliment James on. I think you're one of the first architectural historians to address the Fairview campus of Butler and its buildings. That's terrific. Thank you.
Yeah. And Dr. Glass, were we right about some of those things we were just talking about?
Absolutely. The Ovid Butler House, the date I've seen is 1848. It's at
And I think
13th,
that's right.
13th,
I
and
was thinking of
13th Park.
I think I was thinking of the Tinker House.
Uh-huh.
That was
Yeah.
1850, 51.
He
Not
had
too
a big
far away.
he had a big farm there, and he gave 20 acres for the site of the Northwestern Christian University.
It was it 20 acres? I got the 25 from an article at the time, but you never know if they were correct on that.
Your figures are always better than mine, James.
But wouldn't you say that's enough? That's plenty of room, especially when they were thinking of adding to the building. I think it was a financial reason to get a lot more money. I mean, that was a good move financially. I don't like what happened to the building, but
What's the significance of it being called Fairview, James? Was that just the small town outside of Indianapolis and that's why it was called Fairview? Was it the Fairview family farm that amusement park was on originally? What's the significance of the Fairview portion?
Pretty sure that was the name of the amusement park that was on the site. If anybody else, if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case.
And that's why they need the door.
That is accurate.
Oh, really?
And did the trolley go up there, Lorraine? I know like the original trolley line went up to like Broad Ripple Park. Did it go up to this amusement park?
It did.
Would that have been up Illinois, maybe?
That I don't know.
Okay.
And does anyone know what that little railroad was? Is there was a article at the time the building was being thought up, not even built yet, that said that that was a bad location for the campus there at Jordan Hall because there was no way to get all the coal there to heat and run the building. And
Oh,
they said since there's no railroad, they're going to bring the coal up on the canal. So that's why I'm like, if there was a railroad, I mean, it was right there. That's why I'm like, do you think that was part
I think it was a
of
trolley, like a trolley, that
like
type
a
of line.
streetcar. Mm-hmm.
Streetcar, exactly. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
but you saw that? Can you still see the images?
Not currently. You'd have to reshare your screen, I think. There you go.
Oh, did it?
Yep, you're good.
Oh.
I remember you calling that out, and I thought that probably was where the trolley came up.
Yeah, see that? I mean, but the what is it? The canal is right there. It's a weird location, but
Uh-huh.
I don't know, but I just thought it was interesting. I didn't even notice it until I was looking at these pictures a little
Oh
closer.
yeah, I used to walk it every weekend just for enjoyment. And I'd take it down past the art museum till it just kind of dead ended. I mean, it didn't originally because it picks up downtown, but now
Ah, that's right.
you can't go the whole way now.
Mhm.
Mhm.
James, you've got compliments in the chat from both Dee Dee and Sarah as well. Dee Dee says, great presentation. And Sarah said, as a former Butler student, I really appreciate this info. Things I never knew. Thanks to you all for this presentation.
And again, thank you for allowing me to do this. It's nerve-wracking, but it's fun.
Really interesting. If we don't if anybody has any other questions, you can go ahead and drop those in the chat. I'll lament for a few seconds here to give you a little bit more time. Do want to remind everybody of the presentation on June 17th. We will post it online here in the next few weeks just so you can get that on your calendars. Same format online, completely free. We actually do have a question that just came through, James, that says, how long did it take to compile all of this information? That's a great question.
Well, honestly, because Butler's done such a great job with their archives, if you notice, all the photographs up until about 1960 with clues, anything kind of after that, it was actually tough to get images of the very recent buildings. The older buildings with their archives was wonderful. And then, of course, down there down there in Irvington at their historical society was fantastic also. But I've been working on this for a few months.
We appreciate it greatly. We appreciate it greatly. James, what was the last one? That you did. Why can I not think of it? Oh, Tinker Street, the Meridian Street one
Yeah, Meridian
was
Street.
another fantastic one discussing, and we really appreciate how much detail that you go into, not only about the surrounding communities, but about I learned so many new words every time I listen to one of your presentations. Between you and Dr. Glass, I can name the different architectural details, which is really helpful in a building like the Propylaeum. So we really appreciate that. Um, Well, everyone, thank you so much. Again, June 17th will be our next historic preservation series. We really appreciate everyone joining us this evening. Please feel free to reach out to the Indianapolis Propylaeum with any questions, ideas, etc. Marjorie and Lorraine, thank you so much for all of your hard work to put this together and for your ideas. James, Rebecca, thank you so much for your time this evening. Everyone, please have a good evening, and we will see you at the Propylaeum hopefully very soon. If not, we'll see you in June.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.